Hello and welcome to the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship Round 3 from Imola, coming to you on the iRacing Esports Network and on Apex Racing TV. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick. Alongside me tonight is Daniel Lee with Scott Newton on the cameras, and we are heading to an absolute classic today, Daniel, for this Round 3 of the season. We were at Le Mans last week, another classic, but very different to this one. The long straights, the Mulsanne being replaced for the tight, twisty chicanes of this track, and it should offer a very different challenge for this round of the championship.
Yeah, definitely. First off, good evening, viewers. Thanks for coming back on and catching round 3. Sam, as you say, going from Le Mans last week back to Imola, completely different style of circuit. Obviously, we had a lot of drafting benefit that the guys were able to utilize last week out at Le Mans. This time, we've switched that over. We've gone to some more technical options here on this circuit. 3 chicanes that the guys are going to definitely need to navigate their way through, which could lead to some interesting run into turn 1 as we kick off the race. But then there's some very big, heavy braking zones, which are going to lead to some great passing opportunities for these guys as well.
Yeah, it should be a real tight 45-minute race. For those who aren't familiar with the formats of this championship, we have pre-qualifying in this championship. There's so many drivers signed up for this championship that you have to do a pre-qualifying session just to get into this top split. Probably about 100 drivers did pre-qualifying, and only approximately the 40 best get into this top split for this race. So a couple of other splits are going on, but we're just broadcasting this top one, the best of the best. And very soon we'll complete this 10-minute practice session and be able to go through your grid. Just looking at the points at the moment, Daniel, I mean, it's as close as ever. Michael Healy, though, currently the championship leader, but it's so tight. And the point system that the guys use in this championship, where the points only go down by a very small kind of incremental size by each position you go down by. It just shows how important those consistent finishes are, and this is a real danger circuit for many of those championship contenders. This is a circuit where a DNF is very possible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a very technical circuit, as we sort of touched on before. But, we saw last season the points championship with Tim Phoeben taking it came as a result of some very solid finishes throughout the course of the season. He may not have taken race wins every weekend, but he was clean, methodical, consistent in getting those points in, and ultimately came home with the championship at the back end. And that's what the guys really need to focus on going forward.
So the guys just lining up on this very unusual semi-grid. There aren't a whole lot of straights around this circuit, so they kind of got to settle for a little bit of a weird corner instead. It's Craig Edwards on pole position. He was on pole by just under a tenth of a second ahead of Kane Ryder. Joshua Thomas there in 3rd place after a bit of a tricky Le Mans round. Then it's Anthony Winkelmann, Lee Vandenberg, Aidan Luthwaite, Nathan Huppertz, Julian Kleinbusink, Hugh Barter, Darren Lobb, Timothy Beeben, defending champion, of course, and Ross Rizzo rounding out the top 12. He has had a pretty good season so far, as Rizzo. Carl Dawson lines up in 13th. Then it's Danny Davison, Jordan Cullis, Will Alton, Simon Nicholson, Chris Pellett, Jason Dixon, Jeremy Clark, Pat Gallo, Jordan Pruden, Matt Allison, and Martin Crisp lining up in 24th. He was spectacular, actually, at Le Mans. Was Chris, I think, got a top 10 in the end. Harrison Sellers is in 25th. There's Martin Silvassi, Tom Huggan, a little bit strange to see him so far down. Aaron Specchio in 28th. Grade McHugh in 29th. There's Alex Crater, Adrian Vlock, Michael Healy, Damon Mulqueen, Mario Bartanian, Adam Gardner, and Blake Daniel. That's the top 36. I think the rest of the drivers will just cycle through, where you can see how big a grid we have today around this relatively small circuit as the drivers just approach the final couple of corners. Very unique start of the race. The green flag comes out incredibly late, so watch out for Edwards to probably go before the green flag comes out, and there could be a little bit of shuffling behind. There is a little bit of braking, but already Edwards does put his foot down well before the green flag comes out. And for Fusion Sim Racing, he leads us away over the start-finish line. Trying to gain a place straight away is Joshua Thomas just behind. Poor start for Vandenberg, great start for Lobb. He's already up 4 places somehow into 6th on the outskirts of the top 10. So he just negotiate the first chicane and round it already as well. The BMW fortunately scatters off the circuit. and that was Kane Ryder, the driver who dives in second place. And we've got another Ford off the circuit as well. I think that's Will Orton now, dropping down the order, and he'll be outside the top 45 straight away. So a couple of big hitters straight away dropping down the order. Clean Busek, though, up 4 places from 8th on the grid. Darren Lobb up 4 places from 10th on the grid, like I was saying before. So Jeremy Clark and Harrison Sellers and Brady McHugh as well, up 8 places already. But for Craig Edwards, that's just the start. They wanted his main challenger already pretty much out of the race.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there for Ryder getting that spin around. We see another BMW getting looped around just at the end of turn 7 there as well. So a little bit messy for a couple of drivers there. Everyone else, though, seeming to get through nice and easily there. We've got a little bit of a battle starting to form up for 3rd position. Our top 2 currently getting away. And as there's more incident coming down into turn 10, this is probably one of the toughest corners on the circuit here, and about 3 or 4 cars heavily involved in that issue.
I saw one of the Porsches kind of cut the second part of Aqua Minerale and seemingly caused all sorts of issues. Such a slow corner. So now as well that guys behind couldn't get out of the way. I think Harrison Sellers and maybe Aaron Specchio getting involved. I think Tom Huggan as well, perhaps, was pretty near that. We've got another driver off. That's Nathan Harperts. Harperts with a mistake. Got 2nd place in the championship last season. Led the championship going into the final round at Belle Isle, but connection issues ruled him out of any chance of the title. And that is a costly mistake. Straight away drops down to 15th place on a circuit where a track position is ever so important. Just see how close it is. Really aggressive driving in these early stages, just showing how these drivers feel like their best opportunities at these overtakes, probably in these opening couple of laps.
Yeah, definitely. And one driver too that's already started making a big lot of inroads forward up through the field as well as some of those issues. Matt Morris, he started from the back of the grid tonight too after a penalty for infraction last race at Le Mans. So he's already climbed 13 spots, currently finds himself in 37th out of our top 50 as well. So a lot of work left for him to do over the course of the night. He's got Vaughan Ryder just ahead of him, and then a few other cars. As there's another spin around, that looks like a couple of the Mark 1 cars, Jesse Butler, and I think that might have been Dave Clements involved in that.
Oh yeah, good shout, say, yeah. So that's not what you want to see at this point of the race, or at any point of the race, to be fair. Morris, as you say, making some good progress at the moment. But probably maybe a top 15, probably as high as Morris is going to get, I imagine, just trying to recover as many points as he possibly can. There's Brady McHugh in 17th place, is up 12 places from the start. McHugh, who is a driver who I haven't seen a whole lot from, but Riot Sim Racing, a team that we have seen quite often on the esports network. You can see the amount of damage though that BMW has. No pit stop. Well, there is one pit stop in this race, and they do get a fast repair as well. So as long as he can kind of get it to midway points of the race, should be able to get all that damage fixed later on, and should be very quick towards the end of the race. No moves I can see on the timing screen, at least, all the way down in the top 20 at least. You can check out the live timing link provided by SPK Gaming in the description below. Click on that. You can see the gaps and the lap times between all the drivers. It is really useful. You can also see as well on your time board as well on the side of your screen. Edwards only quarter of a second ahead. It was an awesome start for him, but Thomas and Winkleman, for that matter, keeping him very honest. Winkleman was the fastest up of the race that last tour.
Yeah, a really good driver there from Winkleman. These three have already started to extend quite a healthy gap over Klingbesenk in the 4th position. You can just see him going through turn 10 there. So the guys, now that the tyre pressures are starting to come up, starting to find their feet, the consistency really coming back to them. Josh Thomas pushing ever hard up into the final chicane, up the top of the hill there. That's probably going to be, we might see a couple of overtakes go through there. It'd be very, very difficult to get them done, but the guys certainly working hard. And after having a run in these cars earlier in the course of the week, really took a good 2 to 3 laps to get those tyre pressures up. The car starts to come back under you, and you can really start pushing on. And that's really what we're starting to see from these three now out the front of this field.
Specchio with a penalty. Stop and hold. That's a big penalty around the similar circuit. Very long pit lane since they renovated it just over 10 years ago. And that's an unsafe track entry. I wonder if that was the instant that Aqua Minerale on the last lap. Winkelmann with another fast lap of the race. First man to dip below the 100-second barrier. That's faster than what they were doing qualifying, for that matter. Actually, about a second faster than what they're doing in qualifying. Probably the track just getting a bit cooler. No doubt that Winkelmann is absolutely locked in right now and needs to continue to pull away. On that last lap, Winkelmann was about 1.3 seconds faster than Clean Boosting behind him. Where that Clean Boosting is beaten by that amount of margin over the course of one lap. Theben currently has got quite a big queue behind him. Because defending champion is Timothy Theben. He's had an alright start to this race. He's up 3 places from his start. But he's not comfortable. It's the car number 1 against Ross Rizzo at the moment. And Davison and Co. So pretty close to it.
Yeah, still doing a good job holding off these guys. Obviously, he's considering the points option here. He needs to gain as many points if he wants to have a hope at defending the title, which for a championship as complex as this, we haven't really seen too many repeat winners, if any, at this point in time. So chance an opportunity for Theben if he can gather those points to get that there for him. But with Ross Rizzo behind in the Ford for Trick Esports, I mean, we've already got Winkelmann up in position 3 at the moment. Rizzo a little further back in the 9th. The Trick car is very, very quick around this circuit.
By the way, the colours on the timing tower, the purple is the Elite Plus, absolute creme de la creme. The green is the pros, and then we got the amber is the amateur drivers, and there's also red for rookie as well. But we don't usually see too many rookies. There is Bradley Sanders too, though, once again getting himself up into top split. So that is how they are all divided. So you can see how well Thomas and Berg are doing, although we know how quick drivers they are, but they are certainly mixing it around with the elite drivers at the moment. This is a long battle. Got Alex Kreitzer currently at the apologies, Adam Gardner at the front of this, as Adrian Vlock has had an issue. Or was that just a connection issue for Vlock? It was just a connection issue for Vlock. He was moving down the timing tower. However, he is back into his position just ahead of this train.
Yeah, the last place you want around this kind of a circuit is for drivers ahead of you having those issues with the connection. So hopefully that will resolve itself and he'll be able to continue on unimpeded. Morris still working his way up further throughout the field, now up into 32nd position. So he is getting there. We've also had a change of the lead out front with Josh Thomas getting past Craig Edwards as well. So it's all starting to happen at the front of the field at the moment as well.
Huge move there for Thomas. The big question is now, can he start pulling away from Craig Edwards? But it's, as we say over and over again, it's not easy to overtake around the circuit, especially with these BMWs, with just how wide they are. But he has been able to clear it, as we should be able to get a replay pretty soon. Here it is. And, well, you can see Thomas is quite far back at the moment. Edwards has got a slowdown. He has got a slowdown. Ran too wide. Or maybe took too much curb. I imagine it was running too wide through the chicane. And, well, very fortunately for him, he can slot in ahead of Winkelmann. But that is a massively costly mistake there from Edwards. Just as though, it looks as though he was pulling a few tenths of a second ahead.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there, but big move for those guys to get that done. So getting on with the business at hand as they need, and now it's just a matter of getting those clean, consistent laps in. He's already been able to gain a little bit of an advantage now over Edwards, who in turn is kept a little bit of a gap over Winkelmann, but you can just see Winkelmann starting to apply the pressure, with Edwards already looking at going a little bit defensive to try and show his intent of holding on to that second position.
Jeremy Clark now with a penalty for an incident on lap 4. Just to drive the penalty though for Clark. Shame for him actually, because he's running well at the moment in 13th place, and with that penalty he'll probably drop to up 35th, I imagine. He's probably going to lose about 15 seconds with that drive through. Here perhaps Scott Newton's found this one, then I am very impressed. He looks like he has found this one. Well done, Scott. And that was the incident with the Ford there. that Jeremy Clark was involved with. So the stewards have deemed that to be a drive through penalty offence. Chris Pellett, the Ford, who received that contact. Danny Davison, has he just got past Carl Lawson potentially? He's having to go defensive. You can see him and Rizzo just ahead have lost time. See Timothy Beeben recently. This is something that looked to be the case because Beeben looked to be struggling earlier on, but he has been able to pull away now in his BMW. You can see the gap that he's been able to pull, and Davison really concerned now with Dawson and Cullis just behind, staying ahead of those guys.
Yeah, this little train of four really starting to close up. I mean, we saw Phoeben not that long ago involved in that, and he's scampered off as he works his way down into 10 now. But Rizzo just starting to be a little bit of a cork in the bottle. He's holding on to this position in ninth at the moment. Actually, sorry, apologies, seventh at the moment. So yeah, the Ford looking very consistent. He is our top running Ford at this point in time. Hopefully that will continue to be the case. But the BMW with Kyle Davison and Danny Davison, Cole Dawson, Danny Davison, are both pushing their way through. I think the Porsche in this circuit probably going to be the preferred car, especially with some of those tight, tricky corners that the guys have got to exit off, and having the engine right over the back of those tyres very much helping that car as we watch him float through that final corner, gets it up nicely over the curbs and doesn't lose too much time to Rizzo ahead, so should be able to utilise the draft and maybe have a look at a run potentially down into turn one.
Edwards and Winkleman are ever so close. They're constantly changing positions. Edwards, though, ahead. He may have won that battle. He's losing the war at the moment, is Edwards, because the gap now to Thomas is up to 1.8 seconds. There they are. And yeah, 1.8 seconds. At the moment, there goes Winkleman. Well, that was a surprise. And it might just turn out to be a very good surprise for him. Half a tenth of a second behind at the moment, inside for the next corner. And this should be game, set and match for the Porsche. And there goes Winkleman, finally ahead. And it took him a little while. Edwards just not with the pace at the moment. And now Winkleman, he has got the fastest lap of the race at the moment. He can now start to really show what his pace is like. He's got 2.4 seconds to catch up to Thomas. And that was a very forceful move.
Yeah, as he
loses
the
he's
back
lost
end.
it straight away. Winkleman taking too much curve or just not getting the line right. And add insult to injury, kind of just rotated at the worst angle, has to turn the car around and get back on his way. The adrenaline running through his veins, and yeah, just got almost overexcited there.
Yeah, and that rotation of the car has dropped Winkleman now from third position down to 11th. So we'll catch a replay of that just to see where it unfolds. You can see down the inside as the guys were working their way through the parabolic at turn 8. Winkleman down the inside, and there was a little bit of a hip check that just forced Edwards wide ever so slightly and allowed that move to go through. But the run through here, it looked like it was a done deal for Winkleman. He had the position, the pace very, very good, and gets it through turn 10. Well, a little bit of understeer, tyres light up there, shouldn't affect it. But the run here down into the top chicane, braking late, actually probably over-braked it just a fraction, hit the boards at the 50 mark, and then got up on those curbs, which generally you should be able to get through quite nicely, but grabbing that little bit extra rear brake ultimately rotated that car around. And we see him now closing in to the back of that train, so Nathan Huppert's just ahead of him. And then we've got Collis Dawson, his teammate Rizzo. Danny Davison's also managed to get past Ross Rizzo as well, so he promotes himself now up to the 6th spot.
I think that only just happened, actually. So, yeah, Davison does get past Rizzo. Well, Winkleman can think of this as a fun race now. He could perhaps get himself back up into 6th, perhaps. Could he get past Davison later on? He was very quick earlier on. Here was the move for Davison. Once again, a while back. And this hairpin seems to be the best opportunity. If anything, it was quite simple for Davison. Rizzo should have covered it off slightly more because it was a poor exit from Villeneuve. And easy for the Porsche to get past. Dawson now is almost past. He's on the outside. They don't want to lose the draft. It's not a particularly powerful draft in these GTE cars. However, when there's such fine margins between these machines, every little helps for these drivers. Bart's, and now with the fast after the race, that's really come out of nowhere. He Bart's up into the podium positions for ERT. Is Rizzo okay this time? Looks as though he might not be. There goes the BMW, and now there's contact from behind. And that was Cullis going into Dawson, I believe.
Yeah, that's a tricky spot. We were talking about that earlier on. Turn one down into that first chicane, always a big opportunity for the guys trying to run the car as wide as possible, just grabbing a little break and the dirt, and ultimately having that incident. Here's a look at the replay on board from Cullis now. We see him running down quite wide into one. The BMW considers a move, breaks out very early and closes back across the line. I don't think Cullis had anything really in that, because the BMW there was certainly moving within the braking zone. So wait to see what race control have to say about that. I think that will be deemed a racing incident, though, based on the movement from that car, however.
Certainly does set a precedent, if there isn't already. Because that was, as you say, just a bit of movement under braking. With miscommunication almost. Could argue that much more space could have been left, but yeah, we'll see if the stewards decide if that's worthy of a penalty or not. Out in the lead, it's up to 3.4 seconds now. Thomas v. Edwards. And Edwards hasn't been fighting. He's probably averaged about 3 tenths of a second a lap slower. Thomas seems to have the manage on this one. A driver who hasn't won a whole lot of races for Fishy Motorsports in this series, as far as I can remember. He's probably won 1 or 2 I've commentated on, but certainly not as many as he should have done. But constantly a driver kind of in the 3rd position to 8th position range. Today, he does certainly look like the fastest driver out on circuit, but Hugh Bart's is looking really nice right now. On that last lap, he was 8 tenths faster than Craig Edwards, and he's got the gap down to 1.7 seconds. And when we get into the pit stop range, which is still a couple of laps away, he's going to be within undercuts or even overcut range of his rival.
Yeah, he's really putting a really solid run here together at the moment. Pace very, very nice. I mean, Hugh Barter, one of the drivers we haven't really seen before. He's come out of a bit of nowhere in this championship. I think this might be his first race at the moment as well. So to be in here, first race in the championship, up into split 1 already, now fighting on the door of a podium, doing very, very good. We are seeing too, Kyle Dawson will get a post-race penalty there for contact. So a little bit of issues for his night as well. Also keeping an eye on Matt Morris as well, who, if you remember, started down in 50th position, currently sitting in 21st at the moment as well. So continuing to bring that Ferrari back up through the field now as well.
Good pace actually for Morris. He did a 40.37 that last lap. That is faster than second place man Craig Edwards. So it's not slow. In fact, many drivers faster than Edwards. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of the drivers kind of in the 20th range, around 20th place. Pretty much all of them faster than second place man. So despite the front few guys really outpacing the rest of the order in the early couple of laps, seemingly maybe just evening out now that the drivers are getting a bit more space there. It was really show you what their ultimate pace is a bit more. Rizzo and Hupperts. Hupperts has lost out to Rizzo. No, apologies. No, Hupperts is coming back at Rizzo. Remember, Hupperts was off the circuit earlier on. In fact, it's Winkleman who's right on his tail, who was up into second place. Looks as though he might be able to chase down Thomas for the lead. But, had a spin at the chicane earlier on, and he's trying to get past the BMW. Does he question whether this is kind of worth Hupperts' fight? Because it's quite inevitable right now that Winkleman will be past him sooner rather than later. If he doesn't get it done on circuit, it will almost certainly be done during the pit stop sequence. And so it's probably not worth risking an incident with the orange Porsche right now. If it doesn't really want to lose too much time, that team's rival past either.
Yeah, I think we'll see a move very quickly here from Winkleman, although Hupperts is still a very, very hard driver to get a move put against. Very fair in the way he drives these cars, but it certainly doesn't make it easy for you. Winkleman now gets that Porsche through that chicane where we saw him have that rotation about 5 or 6 laps ago now, which ultimately dropped him back. So the pace still good. He's got his teammate ahead for a little bit of help in Ross Rizzo, so we'll see whether those two are able to help vault themselves further up the order. There's also a penalty for Veterian, so that'll be a penalty for contact as well as Winkelmann dives into the pit lane.
Had enough of that. Where will he come out? There's actually a little bit of a pocket at the moment. About 30th place. I think he might come out around that area. Well, there's the track map. Yeah, that's not too bad for him. So he'll be ahead of 25th then. And then he should be able to be in that decent gap. So that might not be too bad for Winkelmann. So he's got some software which tells him where he'll come back out on cycle. If he's in traffic, then that will really scupper his chances. So a long pit lane round this cycle. In fact, he's going to be a little bit more in the midst than I thought he would be, as he lets a few of these drivers past. And he is going to have some overtaking to do as Winkelmann. There he is. Can he at least stay ahead of keeping? No, he can't. So there's hopes of an undercut, certainly a powerful undercut. Very much hurts right there. He needs to be extremely quick, like nicely butts to getting past these guys. Otherwise, he's going to be in trouble. Also, the race leader, I think, came into the pits because Craig Edwards now leads this race.
Yeah, actually,
in fact, has Thomas made a mistake?
I have a feeling Thomas has made a mistake.
Yeah.
He still hasn't registered as a spot down the lane, but he's ultimately dropped himself now back into the 5th position. Let's see if we can get a recap of what happened here. Gets it in through the second chicane. Car looking pretty good. Oh, just runs at a fraction wide, gets in the gravel trap there, noses it into the wall. So luckily able to get that car rotated around, just squeaks it in front of those two behind, or now in front of him, which was Lob and Phoeben as well. So could have been much worse for him there, but we'll be able to fight on and hopefully with the quick repair that he'll have access to, get that car back up underway.
What a shame. He had this race win in the bag, really. He pulled the gap, he had decent pace, and he's made himself a big mistake right there. Huppert's has towed back to the pits. Nathan Huppert's with another retirement to go with his Belle Isle retirement last season as well. So a couple of championship leaders with big mistakes right there. And yeah, Huppert seems to be out of this race. At least we'll be able to use a fast repair. So it means that Edwards now leads. Bart's in second place. Darren Lobb is up into third. Remember, did win at Montreal, the penultimate round of last season, with a fantastic defensive performance. And Phoeben, who we pretty much ruled out at the start of the race, started in 11th place. He's up into 4th and is setting some very good times. But right now, I think Hugh Barton must be the favourite in this race. He's been taking half a second out of Edwards for these past few laps. And if he pits on the right lap, it's so tricky because I think that might be what this race comes down to. I'm sure he'd love to come into the pits right now, Bart, because he'd almost certainly be able to undercut Edwards. But if you come out into traffic, as we saw Winkelmann do, then you're probably going to lose more time than you gain. So this is real fine margins right now for Hugh.
Yeah, very tricky as to when you decide to come in for those pit stops. Looks like too Nathan Huppert's actually did get back in. He was able to rejoin. Does find himself still ahead of Anthony Winkelmann, who we saw those two having a battle for just prior to Winkelmann's stop there. We've got a few more drivers entering the lane. Klimbasink, Dawson, Mulqueen and Gardner all in for their one and only stop tonight. So that'll drop them a little bit further down the order. But the gap for our front two at the moment continuing to shrink down to 0.3 of a second. It was only 0.6 that they commenced this lap. So Barter closes in fast and definitely be looking to get a move done here any second now.
Apologies about me thinking that Huppert's had told. I think his pit stall might be on the pit on the start finish line, which perhaps meant that he was ahead on the timing screen, which is a little bit weird. But yeah, Edwards 0.3 clear. So where Bart is within passing range. Just question though, how much is that damage going to be affecting him down the straight? He needs every kilometre an hour he can possibly get in order to pull off a move, as he just has a little bit of a poor exit from that chicane. Certainly he is closing late in the tight into Rivatsa. Do either of them opt into the pits? They can't go too far in this race. They are They start this race, I think, with 60% fuel, and so they should be able to reach probably about the 35-minute mark. The fuel goes decently far in around this circuit. So still got a while to go yet if they so choose, and they're just ahead of the back marker as well, which they'll be very pleased with. Not close enough for a move this time is Barter. As Coleman, a bit further down, 25th place, Fishy Motorsports. That's Joshua Thomas's teammate. And he's behind Brady McHugh at the moment at 17 places. Here's Coleman.
Yeah, very solid drive for Coleman there, and another good run for the Fishy Motorsports cars who we saw early on that they had their car up the front, doing very, very good things. So Fishy Motorsports coming on quite strong. Coleman did lose a little bit of ground, however, to hit McHugh there, who in turn has closed right up onto the back of Michael Healy, another one of the Trick Esports cars there, one of their Porsches. So looking to get a move done here. A few more guys too in the lane, Tom Huggin and Steve Jansen as well. So stops probably about the right time for these guys, and they'll get back underway. No more stops for them. Will we see McHugh, though, get a move done here? He's got the draft advantage down into the first chicane, closing up ever so tightly on that Porsche, just not able to get enough of a run to fire it through, keeping off those yellow curbs. And right sim racing car looking very, very capable in the hands of McHugh at the moment. So look for him to potentially get a move done any second.
Few pit stops coming in recently. Joshua Thomas currently top of the drivers who have pitted. Remember, Thomas is former leader, but did spin at the Villeneuve chicane and lost that lead, was in 5th place before the stops. Also, Ross Rizzo has come into the pits, and he's actually ahead of Nathan Huppert still. So that's good news for him. Also, Winkleman as well behind both those drivers. Winkleman still behind Huppert, so we saw Winkleman coming for an early stop, and in fact that kind of hurts him, if anything, because he's actually further behind Huppert than he was beforehand. So the undercut on that occasion was not a positive effect. Even up into 3rd place now because Lobb has come into the pits, along with Davison and Cullis. It's a point in the race where Beeben could be dangerous. He's 6 seconds behind at the moment, but with Bartzer and Edwards fighting as much as they are, he might be able to start catching on. They did lose another second actually on that lap. Beeben must have been a poor tour of the circuit, and actually Edwards with one of his fastest laps of the race. So he's not having to move offline too much at the moment, but certainly on this lap he has had to pull a couple of defensive moves. A little bit wide through Acqua Minerale. Seems to carry a lot of speed into that corner, Edwards, and it does compromise his exit quite a bit. Fortunately for him, it's such a short run down to this next chicane, which really is never an overtaking opportunity. It's just doing enough to keep his car ahead, but the good news for Bartz right now, he's saving some fuel, might be able to take a couple of litres less at his pit stop, which would potentially be enough for him to overhaul the deficit. They could come into the pits as well right now, that they lose 30 seconds. I think they will lose approximately 30 seconds and come in around Block and Crater. And they're both into the pits. So I thought the fuel would be able to go a little bit further than this, but in fact, most drivers are coming into the pits as well. Beeben into the pits, and expect Dixon to come in as well. So Edwards versus Bartzer going to be ever so important as to how long their pit stops are.
Yeah, it looks like all our top 5 now in the lane. Adrian Vlock still out. Actually, he's going to drive in as well. So it looks like everyone's managed to get that stint done. Who are we going to see coming out in first place? I think we might still see Edwards retain this position advantage that he's got over Darren Lobb, as the guys now working their way out back onto the circuit. So Edwards, Barter, Beeben.
Yeah, Edwards was with a really short pit stop, 11.5 seconds. Bartzer with 14.0. That's why there's a gap now between the two of them. And Beeben is quite close as well. Beeben 12.1. That's a very short pit stop for Edwards, considering that he's had no toe for this entire race. For him to do 11.5 seconds, I'm only seeing a couple of drafts, Rizzo and Winkleman, who have both had loads of drafts in that first stint. I wonder if Edwards has done this one a little bit close. Certainly Bartzer's overfuel. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But Edwards is risking it with the amount of fuel he's done.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very tight for Edwards to try and get this one done. He's going to need to save a little bit of time where possible and see whether he can obviously keep the fuel and the pace under that car. So keep an eye on that. Silvasti gets a move completed there on Jason Dixon, so he'll drop him or move himself up now to the 11th position as well. So it was a nice clean move, and he'll turn his sights forward to Jordan Cullis, another one of the Aussie racing cars just ahead of him.
Cullis currently top of the amateur drivers. The only drivers who haven't come into the pit so far, Dawson, along with Simon Mazome and Damon Mulqueen. So a few drivers extending this first stint, but it's pretty much the extent of it. So the order that you can see on your timing tab is pretty representative. Just wonder if Thomas is going to come back. It's so many problems for so many different drivers so far. I mean, you think Winkelmann could have been leading at this point, Thomas could have been leading at this point, but Thomas has done pretty well. He's ahead of Lob. 7.5 seconds to catch up to the lead. He was comfortably faster than Edwards earlier on. Is there any potential for him to catch up to the leaders today?
Look, I think it might be a bit of a tall order getting up to the leaders. We're under 15 minutes still left in the race. He's got some tough competitors to still get through. Tim Phoeben, as you can see, just in front. Certainly not going to make it easy for him to work his way through. The Mark 1 car's very, very difficult to get through. Clean but fair, but very, very wide to go through. But then our two out the front, Edwards and Barta, I mean, they've been very consistent as far as the pace is concerned. Laps solidly down. So they're going to be a tough two to overhaul and first off haul in and then try and get a move done. So we'll see whether he can do it. But right now he's got to set his sights forward. He's got Phoeben to contend with. Will we see any potential opportunities here? Too close to say. I think it might be at least 2 or 3 laps before we look at seeing him in range to have a fight.
Apparently, it's being corrected anyway, but rumours that maybe Bart's was fixing his damage, but yeah, they did get a fast repair in this series, so it shouldn't have cost him too much time. However, there is the possibility that he didn't take the fast repair, just in case he's thinks that he's going to be involved in an incident later on. I doubt that. That would be a very pessimistic mindset and very low confidence in yourself to not take the fast repair in that situation. Barton not making a whole lot of time up at the moment. This is mega close. On our timing screen, we often have red for when a battle is close, and there was quite a bit of red. Some back markers as well in this, and some drivers who haven't pitted. Mazoma and Mulqueen, I thought hadn't pitted before. It certainly shows on our timing screen it's not pitted. But apparently it seems like they have. So this is all for position at the moment. Delaney third in this line behind Mazoma and Mulqueen at the moment. And Janssen just dropping off a bit behind. Janssen actually with a massive queue of himself. You can see it just behind. Really are kind of congregating at this point of the race. About 3/4 of the way into this round 3 of the Aussie Mix and Picks GT Championship. And we are still not sure what's going to happen for the lead of any of these positions. Delaney, though, with a big enough gap on this time not to be able to attack Mulqueen. He has been sitting at the back of Mazoma's car for quite a few laps already.
Yeah, and Delaney's looking at trying to get a move done here. He wants to start and have an attack and move his way forward, but you see Mulqueen going a little bit defensive, going to hurt him a little bit on the exit here, but Delaney wants to get up there, have a run, see whether he can now try his hand at Mazoma and maybe uncork this bottle and get further up. But they are losing quite a bit of time now to Alex Crater, just ahead of them in 18th position. That gap continuing to extend now to 7 seconds. So a lot of work for these three to do if they want to start moving up the order.
Correct there. Delaney, I don't think was going to make that move anyway, because he's going to have the outside for the chicane anyway. Here comes Phoeben under pressure from Thomas. That's going the long way round, and that's not going to happen against an experienced competitor in the form of Timothy Phoeben. Just about getting him offline. Lob catching up to these guys as well. He lost out during the pit stops to these guys. Lob was ahead of the pair of them, but had a marginally longer pit stop and also came into the pits a couple of laps earlier, I believe. A couple of laps later, apologies. There goes Thomas. Is there room? There is. What's the exit like for Theben? He should have a better exit, Theben. However, he's got the outside line for the next corner. Just about gets his car ahead. Can he afford to cut the defensive line off? No, he can't. Thomas back down the inside, and Theben's off the circuit. Can Lob take advantage of this as well? Well, he's going to try to slot in the middle of these drivers, Theben, and Lob does the wise thing. The South African gives way. Thomas back up into third place. It really should have been a race win today for him, but the 766 car at least back into the rostrum places, and now it's Lob who tries to get past Theben. He seemed to have so much momentum earlier on just before the pit stops, got himself up into third place, but still Thomas showing that he's really the man to beat around this circuit.
Yeah, definitely is. We've dropped a little further back. Kane Ryder now with Sam right behind him. A little further back, we've got Chris Pallett as well. So these guys having a solid fight here. Down in 25th at the moment. They've got just ahead of them Dave Clements and Martin Crisp. Looks like also Paul Wood involved in that as well. So a couple of good little cars. It's going to turn into a nice little 5-car fight as they continue on. Just closing into 10 seconds here to go. One question I have got though, what's happened to Barter's speed though? Since he's had that pit stop, the pace hasn't quite been there for him in second place. They're sitting at about 5.5 seconds still, and looking at the lap times last time by, yeah, just struggling to get back into the form that we saw early on in the race.
Redress for 766 on car number 1. Car number 1 is Timothy Theben. And the 766 is Joshua Thomas. Aha, so that was when they changed positions, I guess. So Thomas must have done something a bit naughty just previously. Hence why the positions have now changed. You're right about Bartzer. Yeah, because I'll give credit to Craig Edwards. He's been mega consistent, Edwards. Constantly in the low 40s for a while now. And meanwhile, Bartzer occasionally into 39s, but on that last lap, for example, a 40.3. So just not quite delivering that those consistent 39s that he was earlier on, and you're absolutely right, that gap now extending out. This could be a long chain pretty soon. Even still in third place, and Thomas is going to have to do this move all over again after redressing the position just a few moments ago. The stewards felt as though he pushed too hard, or at least Thomas felt that he pushed too hard going into Piatella. Can he have a move into the first chicane? It's not quite there for him on that lap. They just did a 40.96. Meanwhile, the guys behind them in the mid-40s. That's the likes of Rizzo and Huppert's, Winkelmann. And this is pretty much a 7-car train already.
Yeah, some very talented drivers all finding their way up into this, with Theben starting now to back this train up into everyone here. We'll see whether Thomas can get another run here. He doesn't have the exit through turn 7 at the moment. I don't think he's going to get another opportunity at the top of the hill, which was ultimately what we saw that redress occurring from. Just right there, just got that nose just up on the inside a couple of laps ago and unsettled Theben, which ultimately earned him that penalty. So got to come back now. Lob trying to get into it as well. The guys behind though, Davison, Rizzo, Hupperts and Winkelmann have certainly closed down this gap. So it'd be interesting to see who wants to blink first, who's going to have the go at trying to put their car up and maybe gain a couple of positions here.
God, we got the another queue as well. Apparently Blake Delaney's just lost a couple of places. This chain goes all the way up to Kane Ryder in 22nd. Remember Kane Ryder? Side on the front row of the grid? That feels like a while ago. It was only, well, less than 40 minutes ago. Straight away dropped down the order in the first corner of the race. Could have been for Ryder. Another guy who feels like he could have won this race along with 3 or 4 others. This is what happened to the Team Bushwink Racing driver of Katakuni Xenos a few moments ago. 967. And that was how he got past Delaney on that occasion. It's up into 24th position now. Oh, look at this. Two wide, two back. And Thomas is ahead of Theben again. So Thomas has got past Theben, and now Theben's trying to defend against Lob, who wants that position back after losing it in the pit stops. And there's contact between the two of them. I think that was netcode. And the Lob locating a different consonant to many of these drivers. And he has maintained that place as Theben. Crucially, Davison getting ahead of Lob, with Rizzo remaining in 7th place.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an awkward position there for Lob. He wasn't going to get that move done around the outside. Davison, though, the Optimist, managed to get that car up, and yeah, he will have a crack here at Tim Theben. But Darren Lob hasn't let go of this one. He's going to look to try and close back up to the 5th position. You can see him closing right in on the rear wing of Davison. Thinks about a move down the inside. Not quite going to happen at this point in time. Rizzo just hanging in behind. Also seeing behind this battle as well, Winkelman has finally managed to get himself now past Nathan Huppets as well. So look to see him closing up onto this battle ever soon as well.
So anyway, for Lob to get past, there's a car's wet. You can go for it. These GTE cars are so quick through the corners. I mean, that they possess so much downforce that even for a corner such as that, they can still carry so much speed through. They need to have such a short braking area, and it really does reduce the overtaking possibility into that specific corner. Now onto the back of them, as you say, Rizzo and Winkelman. Well, Winkelman got past Huppets on that last lap, and yeah, Rizzo right on these guys. Winkelman might be able to catch by the end of this race, because we've got 3 minutes to go, and the race leader just with about a third of this lap remaining. So we'll probably have 2 more after this one, I imagine, with these 1 minute 40 lap times that the drivers are currently setting. It'll be pretty close. Yeah, it will just be 2 laps to go, but nearly a third. That I think we'll nearly get, but yeah, we'll just be 2 to go. So we've got a slow Porsche just on the inside. These guys just lapping right now. I think that's Jeremy Clark.
Yeah, just staying out of the way. Lets these guys continue on their fight. Lob, we saw him launch that BMW up over that final top chicane there, and lucky not to have rotated that car around, which will give Ross Rizzo an opportunity here to have another go. Winkelman, you can just see in the background, has now started to extend that gap over himself, and Nathan Huppet's closing up on this train, but I think it might be a little too late in the battle to see him potentially get a move. But Darren Lob closes in down into 1, see whether he can get it up the inside. Not quite close enough at this point, but certainly showing that he wants to try and have a crack here in these final couple of minutes.
So it is definitely this lap and another lap. I'm still fearful for Edwards, to be honest, because he did take so little fuel. But he's got a big margin. Oh, Christopher's off. Oh, well, Christopher's made contact with Mizoma. Oh, Mizoma, who's done so well, was defending for a large period of this race. And it was actually Kane Ryder that Chris made contact with Mizoma with his own mistake, I think, all by himself. It was on the Porsche just ahead. And that was him spinning a few moments later. So he's actually lost it later on in the corner, seemingly. So it was for Mizoma. Gets into the corner. Seems to be all right here, but actually, yeah, dictates it round. Elevation change really getting the better of him there. It's a bit of a J-turn. Zoma down into 29th place now. Further up at the front, Theben staying close to Thomas. As we're about to start the white flag race, Theben has stayed close to Thomas ever since he got overtaken. However, I don't think there's any sign of an overtake. Thomas still feeling the need, though, to try to break the draft as much as he can. Davison and Lob, certainly Davison with absolutely 0 toe on the car ahead, which will help Lob a little bit. In fact, actually, Theben with really good straight line speed. He closes that gap from 3/10 to 1/10 almost instantly. Just doing enough, taking a lot of curb is Thomas. He kept honest by Theben. Both these guys really cannot afford the contact between the two of them. They would be good championship points for their title challenge right now. third and fourth positions would be pretty good considering what has happened to them so far in this race. And just as they start fighting again, we've got Davison and Lob and Rizzo and Winkleman. He's finally onto the back of these guys. If he could extend this race by 5 minutes or so, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely really give us a cracking finish to this, what's already been a fantastic race tonight. We'll see whether Lob can do. I think that's Dave Clements off in the turn 8 complex there, just staying well wide, not trying to get back underway. Davison doing a good job though. 5th position at the moment for EXG, still holding off Lob behind. Phoeben still working on the back of Thomas. You can just see him in the front of shot there, trying to get a move done. I don't think he's going to get that done, but Craig Edwards for Fusion Sim Racing coming through the final corner now for what has been a fantastic run for him tonight.
Absolutely has been. Here comes Edwards then for Fusion Sim Racing to take round 3 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship. It's Edwards who wins out. Wasn't necessarily the fastest, but he was certainly the most consistent. And he didn't make a mistake, and he wins out comfortably in the end. Thomas, despite a spin from the lead, finishes in 3rd. Phoeben, Davison, Lob and Rizzo behind Winkleman as well. Very close. Hupperts will finish in 9th place. Top of the amateur trials will be Jordan Cullis. Congratulations to him in 10th, with Silvassi and Dixon in 11th and 12th. Top of the amateur trials will be Bradley Sanders, it seems. He's around 30th position at the moment. Are there going to be any changes just going into the final couple of corners? It's also a very long run down to the start-finish line. So if you can get a good launch from the Rivatsa, then you might be able to pass by the checkered flag. But it doesn't look like anyone's got a good enough launch from the final corner, just that it gets very overcast as well. And then second, Clark is very slow as he picks up a slowdown, but he's lost out to 28th place there. Chris Pellets gets past him. They're not teammates. That was very unusual. Right at the finish there. I don't know if he ran out of fuel as we got Jesse Butler off the circuit. He'll stay ahead of Coleman, but will lose out to Keeping. Sanders crosses the line to win the rookie class, and Sellers wasn't quite close enough to take advantage.
Yeah, I think that car too, Jesse Butler in the back of shot there, just running out of fuel as well. So he'll struggle to get that car across the line before it all runs out. So probably going to have to get that across on the starter if we can. But yeah, she's just coughed and spluttered one last time by the looks of it.
How long has he got? He's got 43 seconds. He'll make it. That's where you need a teammate to come around the circuit and give you a little bit of a helping hand. But he finishes the race, and that will help his points. For the McLaren driver, Jesse Butler there in 36th place. And that should be everyone finished this race then. So we should be able to go through your finishing results. In fact, actually not everyone has crossed the line. But a word on Craig Edwards. In those early stages, it looked like the race was really going away from him. I mean, he got a very dominating start, but those first few laps, he just didn't have the pace on the others. We saw Thomas pull a comfortable gap on him. He seemed to be caught up by Hugh Bartzer as well. Phoeben could have perhaps beaten him as well, but just that consistency from Edwards, and he was absolutely exceptional in that second stint.
Yeah, he put it all together. It was a really solid run. I was just looking at his best lap time comparative to his last, only 0.03 of a second difference between them to finish out after 45 minutes. So the consistency very good there for him. I mean, we saw it throughout the championship, even last season. It was very, very good in the car for Fusion Sim Racing, and again, proving just how solid he is in it again tonight.
Craig Edwards wins then by 6.1 seconds ahead of Hugh Bartz. Apparently a couple of slowdowns for Bartz in that second stint, but even then he wouldn't have had the challenge to Edwards with that very long pit stop, of course, he took. Joshua Thomas finishes top of the Pro Trials, but really should have been a race win for him after he spun when leading the race by about 4 seconds at the midway point. Timothy Phoeben from 11th on the grid finishes a solid 4th, does the defending champion, Stanley Davison, Darren Lobb, Ross Rizzo, Anthony Winkleman. What could be for Winkleman, of course, up in second place. He spun after overtaking Edwards in the early stages. Nathan Hupperts was in 9th. There's Jordan Cullis, top of the amateurs. Martin Silvassi, Jason Dixon, and Brady McHugh in 12th and 13th. Then it was Michael Healy, championship leader going into this race was Healy, but we really didn't see much of him after starting down in 32nd place. Then was Tom Hagen, good recovery, Adrian Block, Carl Dawson, Alex Crater, Steve Janssen, Damon Mulqueen, Paul Wood, Will Orton, Sam Kunizos, Kane Ryder from the front row of the grid as well was Ryder, Martin Crisp, Blake Delaney, Chris Pellet, Jeremy Clark, Brett Hender, Julian Clean Boosink, what could have been for Clean Boosink, of course, Simon Mazzome, Bradley Sanders was top of the rookie drivers, just ahead of Chris Keeping. There's David Coleman, Harrison Sellers, Jesse Butler, Jordan Pruden was 1 lap down, so too was Matt Morris, Mitchell Bales, Adam Gardner, and Dave Clements, along with also Simon Nicholson and Pat Gallo. 2 laps down was Vaughan Ryder. 4 laps down was Matt Allison, and the rest of the drivers were Kobe Williams, Mario Bartanian, Lee Vandenberg, and Aaron Specchier, Aidan Luthwaite as well. So plenty of top drivers with mistakes out there, and we should be able to have a chat with a few of them for the interviews, see what it was like for many of the drivers out there. And we've straight away got our race winner with us, Craig Edwards, who wins this race by about 6 seconds, but it didn't look like it was going to be a race win, and certainly by not that amount of margin in the early stages, Craig, because a couple of the other guys were absolutely flying, but you kept your cool, and it's turned out to be a comfortable race victory.
Yeah, I guess I was left to gather it up afterwards. Felt a bit yippy in the first stint, trying to find my rhythm, and Thomas was pushing me quite hard. I had a little slowdown there in the early running, and then Winkelmann with his Porsche was really pushing me hard down the straights. So it wasn't until he spun out of my way and I got going a little bit of clear air that I was able to find some rhythm. And second place came right up behind me. I was worried that he was going to get me, but again, seemed to do well on the pit stop. So I had that nice little buffer after the pits and was just able to control it from there. So I'm extremely happy to be back on the winners rostrum, and I think first win for this season too.
We saw, I think it was 11.5 seconds you were stationary in your pit stall 4, which was relatively short, especially seeing that you didn't have much of a draft in the opening stint. How close were you on fuel? Because I was really nervous up to that last lap, whether or not you were going to make it.
I had 1 litre as across the line, which is exactly what you want to have if you've got it right. There's no margin, of course, for getting that wrong, but we do try during the week to make sure we've got the number as close as possible. It gets a little bit tricky in the races when the weather is different to our practice sessions, but it wasn't too different tonight to really change the number too much. So I had it pretty much spot on.
You now take the lead of the championship. It wasn't a great round for Healy or Silvassi. Of course, Thomas with that mistake as well. So, I mean, this first kind of 3 rounds of the championship, the first quarter of the championship, that's pretty much as good as you could have hoped for, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been nice to go a little bit better at Le Mans, but I definitely can't be too dissatisfied with my finishing position there. And yeah, always good to be leading the championship. Hopefully I can put a bit of pressure on from here.
Absolutely. So congratulations on the race win today, Craig. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yep, absolutely, to all my teammates at Fusion Sim Racing and our wonderful sponsors, Eclipse Signage, Dripping Paint Graphics, and Daryl Carter Plastering.
Awesome. Thanks for having a chat with us, and best of luck next week.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys hopefully soon.
Craig Edwards there, your race winner for Fusion Sim Racing. And Daniel is standing by with Hugh Bartzer.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hugh, congratulations, mate. Second place tonight was a fantastic run for yourself and the ERT team. I believe probably the first time we've actually seen you in the championship. How was it out there? The car looked very, very good.
Yeah, it was very, very, very good. The first stint went to plan. I guess got the fuel numbers a bit too high and just put a bit too much fuel in, which kind of cost us 3 seconds, I think it was. And then came out of the pits and was trying to chase him down and just overdrove it. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, well, we saw early on the pace from yourself. I think you set the lap record, or fastest lap of the race, so 1:39, I believe, which was near enough 3/10 I think quicker than anyone else out there. So the car looked very good under your hand. We're hearing potentially with a couple of slowdowns after the pit stops that took place that ultimately dropped you back a little bit further. Was that the case?
Yeah. Like I said, I was just overdriving a tad and got to slow down coming out of the chicane. I saw when I was behind Craig before the pit stop, I was losing a bit of time there, so just trying to push a bit harder cost me, but anyways, it happens.
And are we likely to? I mean, we've only seen you hit so far out one race in the championship and been very, very good in that already. Are we likely to have you back in for future rounds? As next week we're off to Spa, so it should be a good event there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be there for Spa. It's one of my favorite tracks, so I'm hoping to win that one.
Fantastic, mate. Well, again, congratulations on second place tonight. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to?
Yeah, I'd like to thank EIT. They've been a huge supporter for me, and getting into iRacing recently, they've helped me heaps. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Up and Go. They've helped me heaps through my actual racing career in karting. So yeah, thank you to them.
Fantastic, mate. Well, again, hope to see you back in future rounds. But for tonight, congratulations on second.
Thank you.
But they're finishing in second place. I think of myself as youthful, and it's really depressing when we see someone younger. He was 14 years old, 14, and he is beating grown men. Oh dearie me. Joshua Thomas, he did beat you today, but I dare say he shouldn't have, because it was looking so good in the early stages. Took the lead of the race, pulling away 4 seconds ahead, and then talk us through the spin.
I just chucked the race win away because it was all just seeming too easy, really. No, I just ran wide on the exit and dipped one wheel in the dirt, and I just lost it to the inside wall, which is I'm really disappointed, but managed to finish with third, so it's still okay. But I think I chucked away a win.
Was it? Was it just a lack of concentration, you think? Just, as you say, just accidentally dipping your wheel onto the grass, or maybe over pushing, or what do you think? What was the reason for that?
Oh, I think it was a bit of everything, to be honest. I was trying to get as far away from Craig as I could, and I was also trying to work out fuel numbers as well, so I probably wasn't paying as much attention as I should have. And like I said, really disappointed with what I did, but we'll move on to the next one, I guess.
Absolutely. After that, it was a pretty fun race for you. I think you dropped down to 5th place. You had a couple of moves to make. We saw a nice battle between you and Bevan. It seemed as though you got past Bevan, but then you straight away gave the position back, feeling like the move wasn't fair. But it looked like a lot of fun, that battle between you two guys.
Yeah, it was good fun. Well done to Tim. When I passed him the first time, I think there was a bit of net code in it, so I think I nudged him off the road, which I got asked to give it back. So, there was no harm in that, and then eventually was able to get past him.
Oh, we just seem to have lost Joshua Thomas there. So we might be able to get going back in the next few seconds, but we will see. Anyway, Daniel, we've got the next round of the championship coming up. Spa. A circuit that all these drivers will know absolutely perfectly, especially with the 24 hours, of course, coming up in a few weeks' time, or even 25 hours, depending on how iRacing decides to do it. And that's going to be a fantastic one. Lots of overtaking possibilities, along with some fast sweepers as well in the middle part of the track. I'm sure these guys are absolutely going to adore that circuit.
Yeah, I mean, Spa and the GTE cars, you couldn't ask for a better place to go, really. I mean, these cars will thrive with the downforce that they're going to get. The speeds are going to be incredibly quick. The overtakes always opportunistic from what we've seen so far. There'll be plenty of options there. Probably the great thing will be watching everyone funnel down for that first time, up through a Rouge, down the Camel Straight, and trying to get a few moves done as they go through there. So I think it's going to present some really good opportunities for these guys to get the passes done. The racing's going to be just as tight as what we've seen so far over the course of the first 3 rounds of this championship, and I'd expect we're going to be in for a cracking show.
really looking forward to that round 4 of the championship, of course. It's a superb calendar, of course, coming up this season. We've already visited some superb circuits at Silverstone and Le Mans, of course, Imola now as well. And we've got plenty more races coming up for you later on in the season, along with plenty more races coming up as well on the iRacing Esports Network. Loads of different categories of racing, rallycross, single seaters, other GT, action, dirt racing, oval racing. So subscribe to the Esports Network and you can check out all the different content which is on here from different broadcasters. If you want to see our broadcast, check out Apex Racing TV. Give a subscribe to the channel, and we've got lots of stuff coming up. We've also got the Apex Racing League GT Championship. So if you really enjoy GT cars, make sure to tune in about 7 hours time for that Apex Racing League GT Championship. Should be a lot of fun. That one now be from Watkins Glen as well. So really looking forward to that. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and also check out our social media as well, Apex Racing TV, at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all that stuff. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week then at Spa in the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship. See you then.